Book of Revelation, chapter number 13. And tonight we're looking at the section from verse 11 through 18. 11 through 18. Now we've already seen one beast. Anybody remember where he came out of? Let's see. Now read. Second one, where's he come out of? The earth. Okay. And again, I want to emphasize the fact that these both these people are called beasts. Now, why do you call somebody a beast? They act like wild animals, exactly. They go by instinct, they go by nature, they do not have the form, or they're not considered men, as it were, in society. They're considered wild brute beasts. So now let's read the verses and look at this beast that comes up from the earth. Notice he's a different beast because he comes from a separate place, but he is attached to the first beast. We'll see that in a minute. And I beheld, underline this word, another beast, not the same beast, another beast. So that means there will be two personages. Remember, the first beast is who? The Antichrist. The Antichrist. The first beast is the Antichrist. Now let's look at who this one will be. I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake how? Well, that's the key. Where's his power coming from? From the dragon, the devil. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth. Now I want you to see that. There's another key to where his power comes from, the deceiver. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live. Okay, so it's his idea to build an image. Now, what's so significant about building an image? Right. The scriptures say specifically that we're not to have images. But this one makes an image. Now notice this. And he had the power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be what? There you go. He's going to give life to a statue. Now, remember, he's a deceiver, so think about that. How could you deceive somebody into thinking that the statue is alive? Right. Special effects. Now, you've watched magicians all your life, and what can magicians do? Right there in front of you, what can they do? Sleight of hand. They can do fire. They can do all kinds of things. Once the stage is set, notice that he does this in front of the other beast. He does this. So where their power is coming from is from Satan. Satan is a deceiver, so what do you think these two are? They're both deceivers. All right, now notice we've not finished yet. It says, and he causeth all, now you need to mark this scripture, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark where? Or in their forehead. Now notice why. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. All right, so you can put the name of the beast on your head, or the mark of the beast on your head. But what happens to those that take that mark? Hmm? The angel's going to tell you later on what's going to happen to him. Now notice what it says. Here is wisdom. Let him that understanding count the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Or 666. All right? Now, the number of man. Now, what does man represent in the number line, numerology, that kind of thing? What's number 7 represent? Perfection. What does man represent? Now, imperfection, lacking, corrupt, fallen. And that's the picture here of this number that the beast and the false prophet have come. Well, I'll give it away. The false prophet is who this is that we're looking at, because he causes people, both small and great, to worship. Look at verse 15. And it caused that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So here we have this second beast. Now notice back in the description in verse 11, it says he has 2 horns like a lamb. Now what is a lamb a symbol of? Yeah, or religion. Okay, religion. Lots of religions have lambs in it. As a matter of fact, if you look over in Revelation chapter 5, where do we see a lamb? Let's just go there. Hold your finger. Remember, John's weeping because nobody was found worthy to open the seal, verse 4. And verse 5 says, And one of the elders saith unto me, Weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals thereof. So we'd look for a lion, right? Because the lions prevailed. But look at verse 6. And I beheld, and in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders stood a capital L, as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth into all the earth. And he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. So there's the lamb, and here's the copy. Okay, remember we've seen a white horse? Chapter 19, we'll see a copy, white horse rider. We'll see the copy is actually the white horse that goes forth conquering the Antichrist. Now here's the false prophet. He pretends to have this religious, and he's given religious authority. Power and authority is what a horn is a symbol of. So a ram with horns. This second beast is then to have a great power and authority in the religious world. He is to be the head of a great world religion. You've heard me mention that phrase, one world church. That's what we're speaking to here, a one world church. Now the Antichrist sets up the one world government. The beast, or the false prophet, sets up the one world church. Now the ultimate goal of the one world church is to worship who? The Antichrist. They don't reveal that in the first 3.5 years, but they do in the second 3.5 years. The first 3.5 years he's in a contract with the Jews, remember? He allows them to build the temple during that age. And what's his purpose or his intent? After the end of 3.5 years, he breaks the contract, moves into the temple, sets up his throne in the Holy of Holies, and demands to be worshipped as God. And that's where this world religious leader is ultimately going to point people to, because he's causing them to worship the image and the beast. All right? By doing false miracles and signs. So he poses as a lamb, but in actuality he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. We read that verse today. Deceiving the people with his miracles and signs. Note his speech, though, will betray him because he speaks as a dragon. All right? That will give him away, the way he speaks. His oratorical ability will enable him to speak great swelling words of false doctrine in such a way that people will believe every word he speaks as the truth. All right? Now, you've seen political leaders rise to the scene quick, and that's no different with the Antichrist. He'll rise to power quickly, and no different will this world church leader rise to power quickly. Now, most people think it's one of the popes of the future. I don't know. I can't say with any authority. It's a possibility. But we do know that he will be the leader of the one world church. Okay? Jesus warns us that false Christs and false prophets will show great signs and wonders. Anybody remember where he does that? Matthew 24. Matthew 24. And down to verse 24. 24. That's easy to remember. Matthew 24. For there shall arise false Christs and what? Well, we've already got the false Christ. Now what do we need? The false prophet. And shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that as it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Notice it says, as it were possible. They'll give themselves away, and the elect will not be fooled during that time. Yes, there will be folks saved in the tribulation period, and they will not be fooled by these liars and deceivers and false prophets. Now, somebody that does great signs and wonders say, oh, he's got to be from God. He's the man. Yeah, we ain't never seen nobody could do this kind of stuff. But remember, if he's deceiving, it's all illusion, deception, mirrors. All that stuff is basic deception. You watch TV and you watch those magicians, they're very good at what they do. Sleight of hand, those kind of things. They're very good at setting up these things beforehand to where you don't know what's happening when it happens. And everybody's, ooh, ah. The next thing you know, people are going whole hog into that deception. The false prophets shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. And notice what he says in verse 25. Behold, I have what? Told you before. What's he doing? He says, he's giving you a little footnote here. I've told you. Look for it. So the Lord's given us warning. Long time before these beasts come onto the scene. Long time before this happens, our Lord has already warned them and given them the signs of what's going to happen in the end times. Now, Matthew 24 speaks exactly, and 25 speaks to end times. All right, now let's get back to the beast. He deceives people so much so that if it were possible, they could deceive the very elect. These two beasts will be the final as well as the ultimate false Christ and false prophet. In other words, all of the spirits of Antichrist that have come since Christ, and all those false prophets, world leaders, world churches, organizations, the false ones, they're all going to culminate in these two beasts. Now let's go back to our text in Revelation and look at the deception. Notice verse 14. Revelation 13:14. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth. Now underline that. What does that mean? What does it mean to deceive somebody? You trick them. You fool them. You lie to them. You delude them into thinking it's so. So underline that phrase and notice this, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles. Okay? So he deceives people by these so-called miracles. He makes fire come down from heaven. He has power to give life and speech to a graven image made in the likeness of the first beast. With power such as this, is it any wonder that he deceives the entire world except those who are saved? They're not going to buy it. They know it ain't Christ, and it's not Christ coming down and visiting them and showing them these fantastic signs. No. When does Christ return? Which chapter does he return? 19. He returns to do battle against these two beasts. Right? So remember one rule to follow about miracles. And you'll stop and think about it. How many times have you heard about the Catholics going down to Buenos Aires or some third world country to see some supposed miracle or a picture or something of Mary or something like that? People always wanting to see miracles, always wanting to see signs and wonders. Remember, Jesus says, don't let them fool you. Just because they can do stuff like this doesn't mean it's legitimate, doesn't mean it glorifies God. And that's the distinction about a miracle that comes from God. It will always glorify God the Father and God the Son. It will never detract or take away from the Father or the Son, but rather give glory to God. Now you know if the Antichrist and the beast are doing them, who are they going to give glory to? The Antichrist and the devil, not God. Matter of fact, we'll see that often repeated in the plagues that are to come, where men will shake their fist at God and blaspheme him. That's their attitude. They think that God is just picking on them, that they're innocent, not done anything wrong, when in truth they're murderers. All right? So here we see miracles are used as a proof or litmus test, but they're legit. But they are not legit. Okay? It's alarming to see how many good people are attracted to the sensational, always looking for the unusual or some spectacular exhibition of power. It will behoove us to let all of that alone and set our sole affections on our allegiance unto Jesus Christ and Him alone. He's already done the greatest miracle. What was the greatest miracle? He arose. He's already done it. There's no other miracle necessary to prove that He is legit, that He is real, that He is truth. Remember, He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. Now this false prophet is going to say, oh, you can go by this false, or by this Antichrist. You can worship him. He's God. And that's what he's going to be saying. Deceiving people with these miracles. It is true that our God is a God of miracles, but all miracles are not of God. Some can be and are satanic. This false prophet deceives the people with his speech of false doctrine and his many works of false signs and wonders. And I want you to see that also. It says, let me find that again. And he exercises all power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Now think about this. Who is he getting you to worship? Who's that first beast? Antichrist. He don't want you to worship God. He wants you to worship the devil, the Antichrist, or the son of the devil. So his deception from the very get-go, his cry from the very get-go is to worship the Antichrist, not God. And his miracles, his so-called bag of miracles, bag of tricks, will deceive many people into thinking, oh, he must be the Messiah to come. He must be the one that's been promised. So this second beast, the false prophet, will be dedicated to the success of the first beast, the Antichrist. And they'll work together hand in hand for a while. But something's going to happen later on, we'll see, where the Antichrist even turns on the world church, destroys it, allows it to be destroyed, and demands then to be worshipped as God. All right, we'll see that later on. He will command the people to build an image to the first beast and make it as an object of worship. All that refuse to fall down and worship this image will be killed. Anybody recognize that before? Where we see that before in the Old Testament? Remember Daniel? Remember his buddies? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? What were they supposed to do? Bow down and worship the king's image. Whenever the music played, you had to bow down and worship it. Well, them three boys said, ain't going to do it. Remember what it cost them? A trip to the furnace. But it was a good trip, wasn't it? Had a good visit with the Lord. Had a pleasant experience. Nothing wrong. And here they come walking out of that furnace, not even touch of smoke. Or the only thing that on them that had been burned was the ropes that held them. And they had a good conversation with God. What do you think about that? They stood for God and God honored them. God met them in the furnace. But now here, the Antichrist is demanding that these be worshipped, or else, notice what it says, verse 15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast, what? Should be killed. See that? He's going to have you killed if you don't worship the beast. Also, if you don't take the mark. It causes all, both small and free, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So what's that do to you? It automatically makes you distinct. You can't buy, sell, or trade without this mark. It's a lot like now, without a certain type of card, you can't access your bank. Like it used to be, you could get to your bank with just a check. Hardly anybody takes checks anymore, do they? It's all with your little debit card or your credit card. Those things. So the stage has already been prepared for the Antichrist to say, you're not going to buy, sell, or trade without this mark in your right hand or your forehead. And most scholars have studied this out and say it's going to be like a little microchip that's implanted in you. And we'll see a reason for that later. But that microchip's going to contain your financial data, your health data. Everything about you is going to be in that little microchip. And that's possible now, isn't it? Think about it. What do they put in your animals? Don't they put chips in dogs now? And cats? Why do they do that for? So you can find them. But also so that they can identify them. And the beast will do that. He'll identify all that are his. And it will be easy then, once all his are marked, to persecute and pursue after the ones that don't have the mark and slay them. That's what's going to happen. Brother will turn against brother, father against father, family. There'll be rewards given for those that turn on their families and say, they don't have the mark, come get them. And they'll pay out. Here's your credit on your account. So they're trading in souls. And you'll see that over in Revelation chapter 18. But this number 666 is strange and it's awesome. It is the best known symbol in the entire scripture, yet no one really knows what it is. John tells us that it is the number of man. Most agree that the number 7 denotes completeness and perfection, while the number 6 denotes man and his incompleteness and imperfection. Thus, the 666 represents the ultimate climax of everything imperfect and vile, everything wicked and destructive. So this number would represent the beasts. These two beasts are true representations of this number. Therefore, it is a perfect sign for their kingdom because they represent everything wicked and everything blasphemous against God, His Son, His Spirit, and His salvation. It represents everything wicked about that. So as you think about this, think about these two beasts now. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to take over the world. They're going to win large countries over to their side. The political leader and the religious leader are going to get 10 kings to follow after these two. 10 kings is a lot of countries if you stop and think about it. Now, what if one of those kings was the United States? And one day, the Antichrist calls up and says, come on, we're going to war. Get your people ready. And everybody that can carry a weapon or fight is going to battle. There, remember, Revelation 19, to the battle of Armageddon. Every hand on deck in that kingdom, those 10 kingdoms, will be there from private to general, from orphan to widow. They'll all be there in that battle to face against who? Who are they going to face? Christ and his army from heaven riding their white horses. So as you look to this, remember, this is setting the stage. Now the Antichrist is setting up his kingdom. It's prepared to do his business. He's setting up, he's going to take over the world. He's going to win. But what does Revelation 19 say? He ain't going to win. The only thing he's going to win is a hot seat in the lake of fire and burneth with brimstone. That's all he's going to win. And that's all the false prophet are going to win, because at the end of the battle, what happens to them? They're snatched by the scruff of the neck. They're taken to that lake of fire and chunked in, and there they stay, alive, until the daddy rabbit joins them 1,000 years later. The daddy rabbit's captured too. Remember what happens to him? He's chained and bound into a bottomless pit and sealed in that bottomless pit for 1,000 years. Okay? 1,000 years. And while he's in that pit falling, we'll be celebrating and rejoicing with Christ for 1,000 years during what's known as the millennial age, when we will be fellowshipping. The earth will have a brief rest, and then will come the final battle, Gog and Magog. All right, so that's where we're at in the scheme of things. Chapter 14 begins to look at the Lamb, and we'll see some things about this message that the angel gives here in chapter number 14. And then we also see some angels that come forth from heaven in chapter 15, having the 7 last plagues. All right, the 7 last plagues. They have vials, 7 vials that have come out of these 7 trumpets. Now, 7 vials. And they're interesting because they escalate. We're in the Great Tribulation period as far as those vials are concerned. They'll be poured out, and great things will happen as well on the Antichrist, the false prophet, and their kingdom. Okay, and setting the stage for that battle of Armageddon. All right, we'll stop there. Mark your spots, and Lord willing, we'll pick up with chapter number 14 next time. All right, let's all stand.